All right, can we get those mics green, please?
Drink some poison.
Well, it is officially hit the top of the hour. We are here for our city council study session, Monday, October 13th at 5 p.m. And with that, I would like to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Want to welcome everybody to this meeting, and with that, we will have Clerk Tomasic please call roll.
Schumate,
Here.
Cox,
Here.
McNabb,
Here.
Molnar, Valentine,
Here.
Walden,
Here.
Wood.
Here.
Motion to excuse Councilman Molnar.
Motion to excuse Councilman Molnar. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by McNabb. Any discussion? Clerk Tomasic please call roll.
Cox,
Yes.
McNabb,
Yes.
Schumate,
Yes.
Valentine,
Yes.
Walden,
Yes.
Wood.
Yes.
With that, we have a public comment to kick off today's study session. So we'd love to turn over the floor to any members of public that wish to address council or department heads in attendance. Do you have any public comment this evening? Well, you'll have another opportunity to do so before we adjourn. So that will close our public comment session, and we'll kick it off to the topic at hand. This publicly noticed meeting is to assemble council for this study session. As a reminder, study sessions cannot include any motion or action from council. So this is a pure study session, information exchange. With that, I want to just make sure we're all aligned that we'll have a focus today on the fire department, and I see many of our amazing personnel here in attendance. We will lean on Fire Chief Simon heavily, and obviously the department more widely. I want to just, in the opening, just a couple thoughts from me before I turn over the floor to you, Fire Chief Simon. One is, I know I speak for everybody sitting up here when I express my gratitude for the fire department, for your leadership, Fire Chief Simon, Director of Public Safety Bullard, and supporting the broader department need, and obviously empowering you all. To all of the amazing individuals sitting in front of me and those that are listening and not able to be here in attendance, just thank you profusely. We know you work very hard to serve this community and to serve our neighbors, and I want to make sure we acknowledge all the great work that you all are doing. That's number one. Two is, on that note, I had a chance to be a part of the open house. What an amazing event. You all really crushed it. The level of community engagement, I would say the very clear strategic planning that was put behind it. I know those things don't just happen out of thin air. That was probably a lot of work by many. So Fire Chief Simon, thank you for your leadership in driving what was such a successful event. And to all that were your army behind you, thank you to those that contributed to that. It was really, really cool. Nothing but positive feedback from the community. And I had a chance to see it firsthand. That was special. So thank you. And with that, before I turn over to Fire Chief Simon, Council, any other comments that you'd like to add before we get started? Fire Chief Simon, the floor is yours.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for the opportunity for us to be able to speak about the fire department, for us to, as Mayor Schumate said, exchange information. I know some of us have different ideas of what the fire department does, who we are, what we do, that kind of thing. And it's important for us to be able to share who we are, what we do now versus what we've done in the past, what we see as challenges moving forward, ways of bettering ourselves to support and serve the community, and what y'all can do to help us out with that. So we appreciate the time. I'd like to thank my team for being here in support of not just making calls, but the special events, like you said, with the open house, everything from the emergency operations to the day-to-day operations and the special events. These guys are fantastic. Guys, gals, you're all amazing, and thank you. I can't do what I do without you all. So having said that, I'll get down to the point. So with talking with Councilman Walden, he and I had discussed just wanting to share a broader idea of the fire department, and the study session is a great place for us to do that. We wanted to give you all a current department status. So what our staffing model looks like, what our call volume looks like, training and certification levels, equipment, and then some improvements and accomplishments. So who we are. Department is comprised of about 25 personnel in varying stages of the hiring process. So we've got some folks who have been here for 10-plus years. We've got others who have 0 years of service, who just hired on or still in the process. So myself, I'm part-time, and everyone else is paid on call. So what does that mean? That means that when our pager goes off, dispatch receives a 911 call, pager goes off, we're alerted that there's something going on. Our folks assemble from Kroger, they assemble from home. We coordinate with each other to determine where's the nature of the emergency, or where is the emergency, what's the nature of the emergency, and they go to resolve the issue. The coordination, the amount of effort these guys put forth toward making sure that we're covered with calls and all of the special events and everything is just phenomenal. So that kind of goes over just the basic staffing model and organizational structure. We have varying certification levels. So of those 25 personnel, we have the majority of us with Fire 1 and 2 and EMT. Those are the basic requirements to participate on the Gibraltar Fire Department. So Fire 1 and 2 consists of about 6 months of training, and that is about 290 hours. EMT is another approximately 270 hours. So all in all, it takes about 18 months to get certified to be a member of the Gibraltar Fire Department. Of our personnel, we have a very young department. So one of our challenges is we have a lot of personnel with under 4 years of service. Of those, the majority have 1 or fewer. A lot of folks who are brand new with no certifications, no training, who are just getting their feet wet, including 3 cadets. Another interesting bit of information, of those personnel with certifications, 7 currently live in the city of Gibraltar, and the rest of us live outside of the city jurisdiction. So to give you some perspective, depends on the time of day when we get calls, things like that. You don't know who's going to be in town. You've got some folks who are responding from outside of the city, which presents some challenges as far as staffing for fire EMS calls. So things to consider once I get to our, a section later on in here about alternate staffing plans and things that we can do moving forward to improve our level of service. So I've gone into most of that. Types of calls that we respond to. So we respond to everything from EMS calls, so sick people, injured people, vehicle crashes, things like that, to fire calls. We had a boat fire recently. We've had a house fire in a recent past. People call 911. Sometimes they're not even sure what they need, and our folks do their best to try to mitigate those responses. But primarily, the types of calls that we are seeing are EMS calls. I think in the fire service in general, we see a lot of fire-based EMS, but most of the calls that they see are EMS calls for service. So I see Finance Director McEwen's not here. I was going to lean on her a little bit regarding some of our financial allocations, but I did want to highlight, as far as our accomplishments, some of the cost savings and measures that we've done in the 3 months that I have been the fire chief. We saved approximately $20,000 on training between some of the Fire 1 and 2 and EMT courses, some other training opportunities. We've been able to save the city just along the lines of training specifically. I'd like to see us be able to do more, but that's going to involve potentially additional personnel, hiring grant writers, things like that. We're looking at different things to try to maximize the personnel that we do have but not burn them out while still trying to move forward. So that goes into wage and pay considerations. We've done some great work with updating the wage and pay document, thanks to everyone's input on that. Special thanks to Chief Bullard and Finance Director McEwen, Treasurer Fonte, for giving feedback on some of the wage and pay increases, being able to pay our personnel for what they're doing, but we still have a ways to go, I believe. At some point in the near future, I believe a second study session is necessary for us to give you some more specifics. Today was going to be a broad overview of the department, how we respond, what we respond to. But then I'd like to do a 6-month strategic plan that we started working on as a team, and provide an equipment replacement plan, the long-term staffing plan, some recruitment and retention ideas, to give you really an idea of who we have, concerns we have, apparatus that might need to be replaced in the near future, equipment that'll need to be replaced in the near future, some of the training initiatives and certification programs that we have in-house as well as those outside, and then potentially increasing our service profile to include community risk reduction and more outreach efforts. So the open house is one big thing that we do, but trying to include more of like smoke alarm program, or we talked previously about cardiac arrest, putting AEDs in local businesses. So one of our challenges is just the personnel that we have. We don't want to burn them out. We have few people that work very hard, but it'd be nice to see us expand in different areas, including increasing personnel, increasing our equipment and apparatus, and then getting into more of the proactive programs. So some of our challenges and opportunities, recruitment and retention is always a big one for us. We do get a lot of turnover. Again, I mentioned we have a very young department. For instance, myself, I have 6.5 years with the department. Sergeant Schaefer's got 5+. Sergeant Jones has 11+. We won't talk about Sergeant LaFleur. She's got very good number of years. Firefighters Lester and Wilkins have some good years on the department, but we do have a lot of new people. So looking at the structure of the department, we're a bit top-heavy at the moment with myself as chief, and then 3 sergeants, and then the rest are firefighters, cadets, and probationary members. When we start talking about alternate staffing plans, looking at potentially bringing on some part-time members to assist the chief with some of these education programs, some of the data gathering, writing up proposals and plans. Again, we're already trying to do that, but with, as you'd say for Halloween, a skeleton crew. Again, great personnel with great ideas, but one thing that I'd like to do is, again, revisit that personnel plan. Some of the things I worry about with our team is we've got a lot of younger members. We do have folks that are going through as cadets, so 3 of those members, and then several people like 21 and under. So what are the opportunities for us as a department to recruit and retain folks that might want to go off to other departments, to explore full-time or even part-time opportunities? With paid on call, it's hard to recruit and retain folks because most of the time they get their certifications and want to go elsewhere. The city does offer a great option for those of us who don't want to be full-time but still want to help our communities. But as a recruitment and retention plan, that's one thing that we'd like to consider. Some of the things we'd like to look at for that specifically are ambulance coverage for peak time. So when most of our folks are at their full-time jobs during the day, covering for peak times. So 7 to 7 p.m., having 2 people at the station. What that can help with, in addition to just making sure the ambulance gets out the door quickly, is covering station duties. So making sure apparatus are ready to go, maintenance is done, things like that. We had put together previously a maintenance and porter program that was top to bottom for the trucks. We can do a little bit of that with trainings. We can do a little bit of that during regularly scheduled things, but it's hard to amass a group of people to go through the trucks and get that familiarity, the regular hands on the trucks. So again, one of the things we talked about was potentially some part-time staffing models. Again, going back to the 800 hours of initial education, that's a lot for someone to want to join the department and invest that kind of time and effort into getting certified to participate on the fire department. So I can't say for the state, as far as what kind of training and certifications they want from us. Training is what it is, but we're trying to look at creative ways of recruiting and retaining folks. I'd previously mentioned, I think, succession planning. One of the things I want to make sure, because our department is so young, is empowering our officers to promote up, to have the tools and things they need to succeed me, essentially. So from day one, I had included all of our staff and let them know, hey, here's what I do, here's what I'm learning as I go. We've done a good job of documenting, information sharing, to try to alleviate issues of the past with that legacy knowledge or tribal knowledge leaving with a chief. So I've made sure to include our personnel on things like that. I've had Sergeant Schaefer sat in on a few council meetings, so he's gotten his feet wet with that. If I have any other takers for other meetings, I'd be happy to have you sit up here and do that. But what we're looking at for all personnel is really defining job roles, making sure everybody is comfortable in the roles that they have, and then having a path for them to promote up, which leads to the succession planning as well as building that recruitment and retention, specifically the retention. So next steps and action items, I'd say we're looking at a timeline for further planning and decision-making. I've presented some information now, but I would really like to give a comprehensive look of what we do. So not just kind of the higher level overview, but specifically who we are, what we do. The call volume information I do include in the council packets, but putting that together with the things we've talked about. As far as identification for council action item or follow-up, I don't have anything that I would need from any of you at this point, but I would like to open it up to the personnel here if they've got anything to share. I know Sergeant Jones had put together these posters that include some of our call metrics over the past 3 years, including this year to date. So Sergeant Jones, I don't know if you'd like to get up and speak about that, or Sergeant Schaefer, if anybody would like to present on that.
And while you're getting up, don't want to interrupt, can we get a motion to see Councilman Molnar, please?
Motion to see Councilman Molnar.
Is there a second? Clerk Domestic, please call a roll.
Mulner?
Yes.
Schumate?
Yes.
Valentine?
Yes.
Walden?
Yes.
Wood?
Yes.
Cox?
Yes.
McNabb?
Yes.
Thank you.
So the posters before you are based on the monthly report that I prepare for Cindy that she disseminates to you guys. These 2 years are highlighting all of 23 and 24, all the data that can be acquired. Thanks to my other employer, my full-time job, I'm able to acquire some more data. That is through the dispatching software CAD from Tyler Technologies. And the rest of it is through our ESO for our EMS reporting. These two are January, the whole year. January to December. For 25, because it's not complete, it's up until the end of September. So there are some blank spots just to help show that it's not the entire year. So it may seem like our call volume number is lower, but this is not the total year, which is why it seems that way. For the last one, I compiled and did a comparison review. This one is the other 2 years. I took the data for the same time frame of 2025. So all the data is the same time frame, so it's not super skewed. For 24, the call volume is significantly higher because in 1 month we had that ice storm. We had an extra 50 calls generated for that. If it was not for them, it would be at the same level. So you can see the drastic increase of the amount of calls that we've had this year. Also included is the personnel account, high and low. It's not necessarily what we started the year with or ended the year with. It's the maximum amount of personnel that we had at any given point, but also the smallest amount, the least amount of personnel we had for any given time during that time period. I thought that that was important to reference because at some points, I don't know what the lowest one is, 18 maybe? I think 18 is the lowest. 18 personnel for I think it was several months we had, with a couple of those personnel on leave to try to run the department, make sure calls are covered, getting answered, and people are getting the help that we need. Chief Simon's done a really good job recruiting this year, and we've increased this year alone by 9.
That's fantastic.
That's amazing. These will be back in the fire department for as long as we want. Anyone's free to come up and look at them.
I have a couple questions for you.
Yeah.
All right, so on the personnel front, you just commented on that, right? And congrats to the additional recruitment efforts and ability to raise the number of individuals involved. On the 23 and 24, you're saying remove that ice storm and the pop of calls, and 23, 24 were comparable, but we've seen a pretty large spike in 25.
A very large spike.
Any thought process on specifics to substantiate that spike?
I'm not entirely sure.
Okay.
I know over the past several years, our call volume has increased steadily. I don't think I could speak to,
Might be interesting follow-up, just on like the analytics behind it, because I know you're breaking this down, and we get the reports every council meeting.
Right.
But I love the reports, and I love the reports you've done from the beginning with the team, right? Because it helps paint the overall analytical story. So Fire Chief Simon, it might be interesting to take a look at that, so that we can say, okay, 23, 24, and then compare to 25, which seems like it's trending high, relatively speaking. What's the breakdown? Like, are we seeing calls dial up? Because earlier you were talking about, get EMS calls and this boat or this, right? There's a variety of spectrum. It might be neat to see that, just to understand trends.
I'd be happy to follow up on that.
Okay.
As far as I'm aware, there's been no major events this year that would account for that very large drastic increase. I know one month we had 70+ calls.
Yeah, 72 or 73, I believe.
It was a very busy month.
And my why is because as we look to try and support you in the department, right?
Certainly.
Training and education in focused areas, or when you think about your service profile, right? Proactive versus reactive. Analytics will help us inform where we might need to lean in or accommodate forward-looking trends, perhaps.
Certainly, and that's why I appreciate Sergeant Jones's efforts in putting this all together, so we can really look at the analytics and say, it's easy for me to say, oh yeah, we've had a trend, we're trending high, but to see the numbers by month, to
100%.
break it down, we've even got it down by EMS calls by days of the week.
Exactly.
So it shows us more of when it would be appropriate for potentially staffing an ambulance during the day kind of thing. So thank you for your efforts on that. I will follow up on the trending data for this.
I'd be curious to
This
see where
Sure.
that's popping. And then on the graphs for total call volume by month, are those all the same axis? Meaning if I look across those graphs visually right now, they're the same comparison? Is the peak on the axis the same, or the bars on the same? They look maybe.
They're not,
Okay.
because this one goes up so high to 100.
Yeah.
Yeah, 88. It does throw it off a little bit.
It might be interesting to like do analytics just to overlay those graphs, just so we can kind of look at that. And then, I don't know if you guys are seeing any pop in seasonality, right, or month-to-month variation. But I guess as you think about like the service profile discussion you had.
Certainly.
Right, or the personnel, staffing, resourcing perspectives, or the, to your point, ambulance coverage for peak times. I think all that, you have such good data that we can all look at to kind of help empower those pathways.
Certainly.
Response times on there.
Yes.
Maybe you could speak to those.
They are. So we have response time. So this one, this bottom gray,
Yep.
is from time of call to, so the time the 911 call comes in until we are at the station and in service. For 23, the average was 5 minutes and 8 seconds. 24, 5 minutes and 5 seconds, and we can't see 25. So that's what this square box is showing. This one is showing from time of call to we're on scene at the house. From in service to on scene. So 3 minutes, 3:38. Our response time has relatively stayed the same. I haven't noticed any drastic increase in that. And then the bottom, this circle shows our average call time, 41 minutes, 39. So it just shows how much time, yes, the call is taking us from that 41, that bottom circle number, from time of call until we close the report down, we're complete. It might not necessarily be when we're leaving the station, because usually we hang out for a few and lollygag. But from when that time is from when the report is done, locked and synced.
Got it.
So it's 41-ish minutes that we have taken out of whatever we were doing, like Chief Simon said, whether it's we were at Kroger, some of us have been most of the way through shopping, our pager goes off, we leave our shopping cart, come and handle the call. That then means we have to go back to Kroger, potentially redo all our shopping, or at home playing with our kids, or dropping off our children at school, or taking care of a parent or sibling. I thought that number was important to show there was, what was the peak number of calls in one day?
Yeah.
13 calls
13.
in one day. So on top of our normal, most of us have full-time jobs. Throwing in potentially, I think I made 12 of those calls in one day. That's potentially my only off day that week, right? So now I just worked another 12-hour shift. It's very time-consuming, and that's just calls. That's not extra further education that we're doing or training that we're doing.
That's a lot. I appreciate the response time considerations, because if I heard you correctly, it's pretty much stayed flat, relatively speaking, especially on the front end, if I see that correctly. Okay. Because I think that's a good signal, right, in context of what our residents or community members feel in context of response, which is, numbers that are staying consistent. Maybe talk to me about the relative comparison, like if you were to take those numbers relative to standards or other community comparisons.
So I'm leaning to Sergeant Schaefer for that
Yeah, please.
information.
Nationally speaking, standard times for full-time departments response is 7 to 10 minutes. Paid on call and rural are 10 to 15 minutes.
Yep.
So with our response times, you can see we fall into the full-time category,
Yeah.
which I think is pretty impressive.
Yep.
It does help that we have, 7 members that live in town.
Agreed.
But like Chief Simon said, when you have 2 or 3 coming from out of town, to still keep those times low, I think is impressive.
Agreed. Because if I look at it, and I can't see the numbers crystal here, but it seems like about 8 to 9 in totality, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
8.5 minutes to just over 9 is our response time average.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Council, any additional questions on your end? Thank you so much for putting those posters together, too.
I have a few.
Yeah, please.
Certainly.
Chief, thank you for putting this together, Councilman Waldron. It's very informative. On the stats that we just seen, does any of this incorporate mutual aid?
There's mutual aid numbers on.
Do we have a number to where we couldn't respond and we had to seek mutual aid?
So the mutual aid, the charts for the monthly one, I break it up for mutual and auto aid.
Yep.
For these ones, because I didn't have much space, I put together mutual and auto aid in one category, and they're on there. The one year it was quite a bit more. Some of it is, there's no easy way for me to pick through the information and see if it's because we only had one person on the call, which is why we had to call. There is, in 25, there, put a little disclaimer on it for mutual aid. There's new protocol for 2020 that started the end of last year. For any CPR calls, we have to call for mutual aid. We have to call for ALS. We cannot get around that rule. So that would potentially explain why there's some of the mutual aid calls for this one, because this year alone, we had 5 cardiac arrests. The auto aids are in there as well. So the auto aids are gonna be for Rockwood, Huron, Flat Rock, and Woodhaven, and those are gonna be for any confirmed structure fire or water rescue.
Thank you. As the chief and I have spoken, as we were looking at the revampment of the special events and special services and the wage schedule and that. I became more familiar with the challenges that this department faces. One of them is we're paid on call, and you all have jobs. So what I'm hearing, we've got about 25 members,
Yes, sir.
and 7 live in the city. Is the responsiveness of the remaining personnel, do we get much from the people that live outside the city? I'm trying to understand your challenges, because it would be very difficult in my line of work to try to respond for things that I didn't know if my crew was going to be there. And we basically didn't have a mutual aid. And so it's a severe challenge for you.
Certainly.
Yeah, it undoubtedly. And the constituents look for the government to provide for the health and safety of this community. So I'm reaching out to council you need to take a real close look at this, because the data's in the numbers, and I think that what the chief just supplied everybody here, if you look at it, it's very edgy, to say the least. And that means no disrespect. Everybody's trying to do the best they can. But, again, it's a paid-on-call department. And, one of the challenges I've always asked is, well, what is it going to take for us to up certification to like paramedic class and everything else? Well, somebody with that standard, I would believe, would go out and get a full-time job with that certification, and unless, the fickle finger of fate allows them to stay in the city. But it's a challenge. It's a very hard challenge that you have on your hands to keep the crews together, to get the response time. And some of the comments that you made by having people in the station and so on and so forth, I think that needs to be taken seriously. And somehow we need to overcome this challenge of having 7 people in the city and the rest outside the city. And I'm assuming that the core is being made by most of the 7 in the city. Is that a fair assessment or not?
No.
No.
Most of them are from what we would say is people that live outside of the city, or who's making the primary.
Yeah, do most of our emergency calls, is there data on it? Is it after hours or during normal business hours?
In the monthly report, I have it broken down by hour. I did not for these because I did not have space.
Yeah, I mean, what's your, without me having to look at the data, what's your take on it? You don't have to be perfect.
During normal business hours,
Most of them, right?
I would say.
Yeah.
Prob- Without looking.
And then most of our members work, right?
Right.
During normal business hours?
Some
Okay.
some of the members have other first responder jobs that have odd hours. So like Sergeant Schaefer, he's not Monday through Friday. He works 4 on and 4 off. I work midnight shift. There's other members that work a split shift. Most of us don't have normal jobs. So we're kind of available at odd hours.
Well, thank you for your service, all of you. That's it for me.
Thank you. I think it plays into one thought I have out of that discussion, right, is looking at the data, to your point, the business hour concentration, right, normal business hour concentration of calls, as you've highlighted, right, plays into the Fire Chief Simon, your kind of problem statement, right, which is like, how do we cover key windows with the personnel we have, right? And to your point, like you highlighted earlier, like, increasing number of personnel on ambulance coverage during peak hour considerations, right? I think the other piece that I know we've talked about, because you have a council here, that obviously wants to consider how we best support you and empower you, is what other measures could be implemented to incentivize gap fill where needed, right? So like, the good news is, to Treasurer Fonte's point, you have 25 personnel. A portion of them are able to make calls in varying capacities, right? I'm hearing, which is good news, that being located in Gibraltar, 7 of them out of 25, is not the clear correlating variable, meaning people outside of Gibraltar are still making calls frequently. So that analytics will be helpful for you to think about, but really it comes down to like, how do we incentivize
Certainly.
in the near term people to want to be dedicated to being on call or present to make that call structure happen? And then to your point, how does that play into the bigger picture, right? Recruiting, retention, succession planning, which I think is interrelated. If people feel like they have a progression pathway in a community they love and are attached to, and will incentivize the long term so that you can groom what you mentioned, which is a lot of your younger demographics or newer entrants. How do we get them to want to be sitting in those chairs 11 years from now? And what measures can we put in place to do that? So I think the problem statements are seemingly pretty clear, as you've highlighted. The other thing that I'm really intrigued about, just so we can think about it, Finance Director McEwen wanted to be here. She's unfortunately under the weather.
Understandable.
I'm going to try and get here for the later meeting because we have a budget hearing and other things, but, or budget, audit hearing. But she can help with the follow-ups on the financial side. But I think it'd be really helpful to get the equipment planning, right, and like material inventory considerations together, coupled with like incentivization proposals, because then we can look at that from a budgetary perspective to figure out how we best support.
Certainly.
And especially if we can calendarize, right, or like forecast where we know we're gonna need it. Not only can we reach out to our other elected officials across different roles within the, potential funding landscape, but then our own internal capacities and how we plan for future, because equipment's gonna get dated and repairs are gonna be needed, and how can we get ahead of that curve under your leadership would
Of
be
course,
great.
because ultimately, we're trying to be proactive as you can be for emergency responders.
Precisely.
We want to do a great job in serving the community, and we're trying to figure out how we can not only meet our minimum standards, but exceed and do a better job. We're already doing fantastic, in my opinion, all thanks to the efforts of all the personnel you see sitting before you and the ones who aren't here right now, but part of this discussion was how can we advocate for us, give you the information that you need, answer the questions, and have this dialogue back and forth so we can accomplish that together. One of the things that I had noted just on some of our dialogue was support from regional partners under challenges and opportunities. I have been actively speaking with chiefs and neighboring jurisdictions about who's your grant writer, how much have you gotten for SCBA's, what does your equipment replacement plan look like? So we're leveraging our relationships to try to find commonalities and efficiencies, and we're working smarter, not harder, to try to improve. So actively looking for grants and things like that to try to support some of the equipment and apparatus improvements we're gonna have to make in the next several years. I know I couldn't do that without the help, especially Sergeant Schaefer. He's my vehicle and equipment guru.
I love that. And I sit on the DCC DMA board. So maybe one thing we could think about is you or a member of the department can join me in some of those discussions as we think about broader funding capacities, right? Because whether it's fire, DPW, or others, there's oftentimes potential money to be obtained in those capacities.
Certainly.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, please.
Of course.
The cadets, those are in high school?
Yes.
You have 8 people that between the probationary and the pending. How many of them live in the city of Gibraltar?
Let's see, of those 8, I've got 1, 2 that live in the city, and of the cadets, I believe all 3 do not live in the city. So of 8, that gives me 2. Everyone else is out of town.
Okay.
Maybe just generally speaking, and Councilman Walden, I'll lean on you, because you and I, as I was first getting into office trying to understand the department, we talked about SOPs, SOGs, command structures, broader considerations, right? And you educate me a lot. So I guess my question, Fire Chief Simon and team, is how do we feel big picture? I know there's been a ton of good progress on SOPs, SOGs, broader policies within the department. How do we feel about that? Bigger picture, is there any gaps that we need to support you on? And then how do we feel about the structural leadership structure of the department as it relates to succession planning, right? Because you mentioned
Sure.
making sure people feel like they have a runway, and then our administration knows how we empower that. How do you feel about both those topics?
Regarding the SOPs and SOGs, I think we've made considerable progress. lending to what we had previously, and then working with Chief Bullard, working with Treasurer Fonte, Finance Director McEwen, and some other folks, again, my command staff, on dialing those in, looking at current standards and things, refining and improving on. We still have several that I'd like to see us finish up, including, an EMT task book. So you get folks that are straight out of EMT training, and you say, okay, you've got your state license, go out on the road. Well, it's not always that easy. Most departments have a field training programs, so giving them a mentorship period where we say, we want to see this many of this type of call, we want to sign you off on this many of this type of call. Here are the skills and things we'd like to see you checked off on, driving, et cetera. We've got that in draft format. We're working on finalizing it, but just really taking away all the legacy and tribal knowledge and the inconsistencies with training of our personnel and formalizing things, making it a little more formal and official, and giving our folks a better pathway to succeed.
Love.
Regarding the second part, and I forget, could you refresh?
Yeah, it was, and Councilwoman, keep me honest here, because I remember when I first got in office, I was just looking at it, right? And I think some of those SPSSOGs were from history, quite some time ago, right? And it had command structures, right? Number of individuals in different positions, and I just want to think about, like, how do we best resource or empower you and the team to have the right model, so you have succession opportunities and leadership development opportunities relative to defined structure on paper, right? That's kind of my question, and maybe something to follow up on. Just wanted to get any gut reaction there.
Sure. So for command structure, similar to the EMT task book, looking at the performance requirements, it's laid out quite clearly for us. They're standard for professional firefighters qualifications, NFPA 1001, officer qualifications, NFPA 1021. We have very clear job requirements, so that's all laid out. That's pretty easy. But going forward, as far as the structure for our department, I think it's fluid. I think defining a structure that says we have to have, a chief, a deputy chief, this many captains, it's not necessarily the most appropriate for what we deal with the influx of members and then the members that leave. But having a general outline saying, per our standards, our span of control is 5. Our ideal is 5. So one supervisor shouldn't be supervising more than 5 people. With that saying, once we reach a certain threshold, we'd like to see this many officers at this level. Once we reach another threshold, this many officers at this level, based on who they're supervising, what their job responsibilities are, and so on. So that was going to be part of the later plan, that 6-month review I'd talked about that we were putting together to really show it doesn't necessarily have to be a very structured document that says that, but again, reaching thresholds or having some sort of limits to how many people each of us should be supervising.
Okay, thank you. I think it's a good fob to take in regards to succession planning, right? And to your point, not being overly formalized in regards to specifics, because to your point, it might be fluid, but still also giving people a understanding of what structure looks like, how that relates to their potential aspirations or development opportunities in the department, right? And how we think then about succession planning for empowering all the department.
Yeah.
Council, any other questions or things you want to raise for follow-up?
I just had a couple comments.
Yeah, please.
Firstly, I just wanted to say, I've had experience working with Gibraltar, and I have to say, in regards to the surrounding agencies reaching down into Monroe County, when it comes to paid-on-call agencies, we probably have the best in the area when it comes to response. We don't, at least not now, the mutual aid call-outs are not as significant as they used to be. It used to be, it was hard to get people to respond. There's been significant improvement in the last few years with having personnel here to make the scenes.
Awesome.
That also segues into the second part. So I think Treasurer Fonte, you had asked a question about how many people live within Gibraltar city limits. When we're talking about the members that are living outside of Gibraltar, we're not talking very far. I think maybe the farthest would be Groseal at the farthest. most of the people that are outside, they may touch Woodhaven, but most of them are going to be in the Rockwood, Brownstown, somewhere in the surrounding area, so they're still close. So taking that, comparing that to the response times, that's super impressive. So, again, hats off. One other thing I wanted to touch, again, Treasurer Fonte, you had brought up the paramedic stuff. It's really hard to get a paid-on-call agency up to a ALS status, just because you have to then go through and hire or train all of your firefighters to be paramedics, which is another 18 months of education, a lot of hours, a lot of time that a lot of people that are on the paid-on-call agency just don't have the time for, and it's an expensive class to take as well. So there's definitely some financial challenges with that, as well as the licensing that comes through the state and all of the equipment that has to go on the truck. It's a significant process to upgrade us to an ALS agency. Fortunately, we have 2 ALS agencies in the area that if ALS services are needed, we can call them, sorry. And then the last thing, I know you, Chief, you had brought up a 6-month study session somewhere down the road. At that 6-month study session, I just have a note, and I just want to put it out there to reassess your workload and start talking about potential part-time deputy chief to help her and take some of that workload out, if it's at that level that it's needed. But just a note to have so we can discuss it.
I think it's a good flag because she raised that earlier on in regards to like staffing plans, right? And I think I heard you, Fire Chief, I took note of that, which was if you think about some of the broader opportunities that we discussed throughout today's session, how do we have the right structure to support that? So heard on that one.
Okay. Yeah, I think you guys are doing great. I think honestly, the biggest issue that I see right now, and we've talked about this and we talked about it again, is the green department. So you have members that have 10-plus years, and then you have members that have 3 or less, and not many in the middle, which creates a significant gap on experience. Not to say that that's a bad thing. A lot of your newer members are going to have kind of the newer standard and the newer education, but they're not going to have the experience to fall back on. So you're doing great. You guys are doing well. I haven't seen any huge problems, so keep going.
It's appreciated. Thank you.
Council, any other questions, comments? Okay, well, maybe then I know we're not here to take formal action, but just so that we think about some of the key themes, right? I would challenge you to say, we said get back to a study session perhaps in like a 6-month time frame. I think the real question we also need to ask is, what is either at risk operationally immediately, or what other, I would say, like high priority or more time sensitive needs do you have to make sure we don't burn people out, to make sure we don't expose financially on equipment or materials or operational needs? So I would just, my challenge to you would say, like, is there anything immediate that you would need council to consider to support you and the operation? And that's just an open question for you to leave with today, because what I don't want to have happen is for us to leave saying great work and the analytics are strong and for the department, but then like you're clearly flagging areas that the team is saying, hey, we're at risk here, and while we're making progress, we're still on the edge, if you will. So I would say, I would challenge you to come back. I mean, I think you have an administration here that wants to make sure we consider what you need to be successful. So maybe just as a follow-up, come back to council sooner than later with what are those higher priority time-sensitive items beyond the 6-month plan of the bigger items.
Okay.
So that'd be one ask. The second thing I would segue to is for the 6-month or maybe even sooner, equipment plan, I think, is one real clear, obvious opportunity. And that's everything from how you maintain preventatively, how you fix reactively. But like we recognize, because we face this across the administration, that there's probably a room for investment or opportunity to make sure we're set up for the long term and that we're not having to react to problems. So equipment and materials, and like whatever you can do to work with Finance Director McEwen, I know discussions with Treasurer Fonte to come back to just have us understand how we can best budget and support the longer term. So maybe it's like, you think about our budget cycles and like, what's the 1 year, what's the 3 year, what's the 5 year general forecast? I think an exercise like that would be really helpful, because then we know when our major costs are gonna come in, and then what the near-term costs would be versus the longer term. So I'd say that's one really good opportunity. The second one is, I think, somewhat interrelated, because when you said recruitment and retention, to me, it's like what staff we have on hand currently, and it's been grown to 25, right? How do we get more individuals in the fold? But also, most importantly, arguably, is how do we take the 25 we have and really make sure they have a path for success? And like, what's the differential needs of individuals across the department, whether it's years of experience, education, certification, mentorship, opportunities forward. So I think coming back with whatever, like, again, it comes back to like, how can we support you on that? I think we'd love to hear more on that one, what you need to be successful there. And then the third one to me is service profile. I like the way you frame that, which I think comes back to the analytical stuff, right? Like, where are the needs? Are they trending societally or downriver in a certain direction? How do we think about catering those needs? And then how do you think about your ability to get in front of it more proactively, right? So I heard you like resident or community level engagement on hot topics, right? Which ultimately hopefully helps be more preventative so that the analytics are not just continuing to rise and rise and rise when you could have prevented something proactively. So, and then that plays into the leadership discussion, right? Because at the end of the day, we also want to make sure succession planning and, your role capacity relative to your command, structure, and how people feel like they have a path for development, and then how people also feel like they have a plate that's understood and sustainable. Those would be my key flags beyond the outline that you raised today.
Very good.
Anybody else have anything they want to see as a follow-up?
I have one question.
Yeah, please.
Chief Simon, in the beginning, you were alluding to maybe having people in the station, manning the station at certain intervals to give you a jump on things. Can you go over that again?
Certainly. So as we're gathering all of this data, we've been looking at like hybrid staffing models, alternate staffing plans, ways that we can meet the need of the community. So when they call 911, we've got a team responding quickly. We're already doing a great job of that. But again, to not burn folks out, we've looked at things such as having staffing from peak hours. So Monday through Friday, 7 to 7, just as an example. Looking at having those folks, while they're here during the day, if there are non-emergency activities they can be doing, such as station maintenance, vehicle maintenance, any sorts of things like that, any of the community programs, so the smoke alarm program, doing things like that to benefit the city while also ensuring we're able to respond quickly with the ambulance.
Yeah, the reason I bring this up is because in the council meeting, the new wage structure and that will come to council to vote on, and therein lies the devil details of maintaining a fleet of vehicles, emergency vehicles, station maintenance and facilitations and things like that. So I'd like council to keep their eyes on that as Director Bullard goes through that program today, just to listen to what Chief Simon was saying and the needs that really have to bring a station and its equipment up to the ready line at a moment's notice. So that's why I wanted to hear it again, because when you look at that program, like we've looked at the program, there's a lot to do. And when you drill down on the details, there's manpower that's required to make that happen. And so if that gets blended into in-house hours or whatever you perceive to be the best time to staff that would be a consideration for council to take a look at that when this wage structure comes up this evening.
Certainly.
Love it. And it would be a great near-term example, like we talked about, where what are the incentives or structures we can put in place to accommodate immediate, like near-term, no need like that. Does anybody else have any other comments up here in chambers before we turn it over to our public comment? Any other comments you wanted to make?
Yes. I'm very pleased with the direction of the fire department. The personnel, we're making calls, and the morale, that's huge. There's so many projects going on right now, and we have so many goals. The pay scheduling software, we're paying our bills on time. Vehicle maintenance is being done, annual DOT inspections are being done, and we're keeping records on these annual inspections. We're keeping the public informed, we're responsive on social media. You know, we want the residents and the public to know what's going on with the fire department. So the day-to-day operations, Cindy's doing a fantastic job, as well as the employees underneath her. Chief Simon's working on getting their continuing education up to date. That's huge, which is mandated by the state of Michigan. She's working on grants, you know, for the turnout gear, because the set of turnout gear is $4,000. So very positive, and I'm looking forward to the 6-month review.
Incredibly well said on all fronts. And I think hopefully you've heard it repeatedly in this discussion, which is we're incredibly excited to have you at the helm of this fire department. And your leadership as fire chief has been clearly driving measurable results and a culture within the department that is trending in a really positive direction and building off of all these opportunities so that we can move the needle in your direction. So just thank you and congratulations, and thank you again to everybody that's the army behind that operation that's there serving the community and our neighbors every day, right? I think we talk about mutual aid. Last council meeting, I read a notice from a supervisor peer of mine, right, unsolicited, commending our department for jumping in to support. So just thank you, and we're here to support you.
It's appreciated. Thank you for the opportunity. If you've got follow-up questions, by all means, you know how to get a hold of me. We're happy to have had the opportunity. Thank you again for your support and listening for this past hour.
It's been great. Anything else you all would like to add before we turn over to public comment? Council department has anything else you'd like to comment on? Okay. Thank you again. That closes our fire department planned agenda and the open discussion associated. Excited to review these in more detail. You said they're going to be in the fire department?
Yeah.
Cool. With that, we'll open up public comment. Are there any members of public that wish to address council this evening? All right. Well, that will close our public comments. And at this time, can I get a motion to adjourn, please?
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
Clerk Tomasic, have you call roll whenever you're ready?
Schumate?
Yes.
Valentine?
Yes.
Walden?
Yes.
Wood? Yes. Cox?
Yes.
McNabb?
Yes.
Mulnar?
Yes.
Meeting adjourned. We will be back in 32 minutes for our regularly scheduled council meeting. Thank you all so much.